The photographs arrived at my conservation studio in a deteriorating cardboard box, sent by a woman named Claire Witmore from Portland, Oregon. Her note was brief but intriguing. These belonged to my great-grandmother. She kept them hidden her entire life. I think I know why, but I need someone else to see them and tell me I'm not imagining things. I'm a photographic conservator, specializing in early 20th century images, so I'm accustomed to families sending me damaged or mysterious photographs. But these were something different. There were 5 photographs total, all taken on the same day, showing the same scene. A family picnic in what appeared to be a park or open field. The photographs were badly damaged, cracked, water-stained, with pieces of the emulsion missing. But the images were still visible enough to see what they depicted. 8 people sat or reclined on a white blanket spread across the grass. 2 adult couples, 3 young girls, and a boy. They were dressed in the formal summer clothing of the Edwardian era. The women in white dresses and elaborate hats, the men in dark suits. A picnic basket, books, and what appeared to be a camera case were arranged on the blanket. The first photograph showed them arranged formally, everyone looking at the camera. It appeared to be the opening shot of the series. In the second photograph, the group had relaxed somewhat. The poses were more casual, people turning to talk to each other. The third showed them engaged in conversation, some laughing, a more candid moment. The fourth captured them eating, passing food and drink. And the fifth showed them beginning to pack up, the picnic apparently concluding. It was a charming sequence, showing a family enjoying a summer afternoon, probably around 1910, judging from the clothing styles and photographic techniques. Except for one detail that made my hands shake as I examined the images. In the background of each photograph, perhaps 50 yards behind the picnic group, was a figure in white. In the first image, the figure was barely visible, just a pale shape in the distant tree line. In the second, it had moved closer, now standing at the edge of the open field. In the third, closer still. In the fourth, it was perhaps 20 yards behind the group. And in the fifth photograph, it stood directly behind them, close enough that I could see it was a woman in a white dress, though her face remained indistinct. The family appeared unaware of her presence in all 5 photographs. They never turned around, never acknowledged the figure approaching from behind. But she was there, moving closer with each exposure, until in the final image she stood among them, though they showed no sign of knowing she was there. I examined the photographs under magnification. The figure was definitely part of the original images, not added later, not a result of damage or deterioration. She appeared in all 5 photographs, consistently positioned, moving incrementally closer with each shot. I scanned the images at high resolution and sent them to Claire, along with my initial observations. "You were right to be concerned," I wrote. "There's definitely a figure in these photographs that moves between exposures. Can you tell me anything about the family or the circumstances of these photos?" Her response came the next day. The picnic was held in June 1910 at Laurelhurst Park in Portland. The people in the photos are my great-great-grandparents, Thomas and Margaret Witmore, Thomas's brother Robert and his wife Helen, and their 5 children. My great-grandmother Lillian is the girl on the left in the white dress. She was 10 years old when this was taken. The photographs were taken by a professional photographer they'd hired for the day, a man named James Carmichael, who had a studio in downtown Portland. He was setting up his camera on a tripod and taking multiple exposures, probably planning to sell them several prints. But after the picnic, something terrible happened. Helen, Robert's wife, the woman in black in the photographs, died that night. She went to bed complaining of a headache and never woke up. The doctor said it was a brain hemorrhage. She was 32 years old. My great-grandmother Lillian kept these photographs hidden for the rest of her life. She told my grandmother before she died that there was something wrong with the pictures, that they showed something that shouldn't be there. But she would never explain what she meant. I found the photographs after my grandmother died, in a locked box in her attic, and when I looked at them, I saw what Lillian must have seen, that figure in white coming closer and closer, coming for Helen. Coming for Helen. I looked at the photographs again with this new context. Helen Witmore sat in the center of the group, wearing a black dress with white trim, a hat with flowers. In the first few photographs, she looked happy, smiling, engaged with her family. But as the sequence progressed, her expression changed. In the fourth photograph, she looked distracted. In the fifth, she had turned slightly, as though she'd heard something behind her, as though she'd sensed the figure in white approaching, even if she couldn't see it. I researched Helen Witmore's death. The Portland Oregonian from June 15, 1910, carried a brief obituary. Mrs. Helen Witmore, wife of Mr. Robert Witmore, died suddenly at her home on Tuesday evening. Mrs. Witmore had spent the afternoon at a family picnic in Laurelhurst Park and appeared to be in good health. She retired early, complaining of a headache, and was found deceased the following morning. She was 32 years of age and leaves behind a husband and 3 children. Funeral services will be held at Trinity Episcopal Church on Friday. I found more information in the city records. Helen had died of a cerebral hemorrhage, as Claire had said. The death had been ruled natural, though sudden. There was no indication of anything suspicious. But something about the timing bothered me. The picnic had been on a Tuesday afternoon. Helen had died that night, which meant these photographs had been taken just hours before her death. Had the figure in white been death itself, approaching Helen through that sunny afternoon? Had the camera captured something the human eye couldn't see? A harbinger, a reaper, coming to claim her? I contacted Claire again. Did your great-grandmother ever say anything else about the photographs? Anything about who or what the figure might be? She told my grandmother that the photographer had been frightened when he developed the prints, that he'd brought them to the house and showed them to my great-great-grandfather Thomas, and that Thomas had paid him to keep quiet about what appeared in the images. Lillian overheard them talking. She heard the photographer say, "It's following her. In every exposure, it gets closer. I've never seen anything like it in all my years taking photographs." Following her, coming closer with each exposure. The figure in white, pursuing Helen through that summer afternoon, invisible to everyone except the camera. I examined the background of each photograph more carefully, enhancing the images digitally to bring out details. The figure became clearer in my enhanced versions, though still not completely distinct. In the first photograph, it was just a pale shape among the trees. In the second, I could make out that it was definitely a woman, tall and thin, wearing a long white dress or gown. In the third, she had moved into the open field, her dress flowing behind her, as though caught in a breeze, though nothing else in the photograph showed any wind. In the fourth, she was close enough that I could see her hands were outstretched, reaching forward, reaching toward Helen. And in the fifth photograph, she stood directly behind Helen's position, so close that her white dress seemed to blend with Helen's black dress and white trim, one figure overlapping the other, death and the living occupying the same space. I found something else in the fifth photograph when I enhanced it. Helen's shadow, which appeared normal in the earlier images, seemed wrong in this final shot. It was too dark, too long, as though cast by two figures instead of one, as though the woman in white was standing so close to Helen that their shadows had merged. I spent days researching similar phenomena. Victorian and Edwardian photography had captured many unexplained anomalies, spirit photographs, mysterious figures, images that shouldn't exist. Most had been frauds, of course, tricks of double exposure or manipulation, but some had never been satisfactorily explained. I found one particularly relevant case from 1906, documented in the Journal of the Society for Psychical Research. A photographer in London had taken a series of family portraits over the course of an afternoon. In 3 consecutive exposures, a shadowy figure appeared in the background, moving closer with each shot. The subject of the photographs, a middle-aged man, had died 2 days later of a heart attack. The journal article suggested that under certain conditions, cameras might capture harbingers of death, entities or manifestations that preceded a person's death by hours or days. The theory was dismissed by most scientists, but the photographs themselves remained unexplained. Helen Witmore's photographs seemed to show the same phenomenon. A figure in white, visible only to the camera, approaching her through a series of exposures taken just hours before her death. But why a woman in white? Why that particular form? I found a clue in a family letter Claire sent me, written by Thomas Witmore to his brother Robert in 1911, a year after Helen's death. Brother, I must confess something that has weighed on my conscience since that terrible day. When we had the picnic photographs made, and Mr. Carmichael showed me what appeared in the images, I should have warned Helen. I should have told her something was coming for her, but I was afraid she would think me mad, and truthfully, I did not believe it myself until it was too late. The figure in the photographs, did you see it before I destroyed the prints? Did you notice how it resembled Mother? The same tall, thin figure, the same white dress she was buried in. I convinced myself it was coincidence, a trick of light and shadow. But I think now it was Mother, coming to bring Helen home. Coming to take her to the place where our family goes when we die. Mother always did say that death came for the Witmores wearing a familiar face. Perhaps she was right. Perhaps she was preparing us for what would eventually come for each of us in turn. The figure in white resembled their mother, who had died and been buried in a white dress. A family death omen, perhaps, appearing in the photographs to claim another member of the family. I shared this with Claire. Her response was immediate and disturbed. My great-great-grandfather, Thomas, destroyed most of the prints. That's why these 5 survived. Lillian took them before he could burn them all, because she wanted proof of what had happened. But she kept them hidden. because they frightened her. And there's something else I should tell you. My grandmother died suddenly, too, at age 32, of a brain hemorrhage, just like Helen. And my mother had a minor stroke last year, though she survived. I'm 30 years old now. I'm approaching the age when the women in my family seem to be claimed. That's why I sent you the photographs. I needed to know if what I was seeing was real, if the figure in white is real, because I've been dreaming about her. A tall woman in a white dress standing in the distance, watching me. In each dream, she's a little closer, just like in the photographs. My blood ran cold reading that. I looked at the 5 photographs spread across my desk, at the figure in white moving closer with each exposure. Coming for Helen. Approaching through a sunny June afternoon in 1910, invisible to everyone except the camera. And now, more than a century later, perhaps coming for another woman in the family. I spent weeks researching the Witmore family history. The pattern was undeniable. Multiple women in the family had died suddenly and young, often of cerebral hemorrhages. The deaths occurred with regularity, usually 1 per generation, always around age 32. Helen in 1910, Thomas's mother in 1887, a sister in 1933, Claire's grandmother in 1978, and now Claire was 30, approaching the age when the family curse, if that's what it was, seemed to strike. I didn't know what to tell her. I wasn't qualified to investigate supernatural phenomena or family curses. I was a photograph conservator, trained to preserve and analyze images, not to ward off death omens. But I kept thinking about what Thomas Witmore had written. I should have warned Helen. He'd seen the photographs showing the figure approaching his sister-in-law. He'd known something was coming for her. But he hadn't warned her, and she died that night. I called Claire. I don't know if this will help, I told her. I don't know if there's anything that can be done. But you should know what I've found. You should see all the evidence. And you should show these photographs to your doctors. Explain the family history of cerebral hemorrhages. Get screened thoroughly. If there's a medical component to this pattern, maybe it can be addressed. And if it's not medical, she asked quietly, if it really is her, the woman in white, if she's coming for me like she came for Helen. I didn't have an answer for that. I still don't. The photographs have been professionally preserved and are now in Claire's possession, along with all my documentation and research. She's consulted with neurologists, had extensive testing. They found a congenital weakness in her blood vessels, an aneurysm that could rupture at any time. She's had surgery to address it. She's doing everything medicine can offer. But she still dreams about the woman in white, still sees her standing in the distance, watching, still wakes up feeling like someone is approaching, coming closer, just beyond the edge of vision. The photographs remain as evidence of something cameras can capture, but eyes cannot see. 5 images from a June afternoon in 1910, showing a family picnic and a figure in white approaching from the background, coming closer with each exposure, coming for Helen, and perhaps more than a century later, still coming, still approaching. The family death omen that appears wearing a white dress, that Thomas Witmore's mother warned her descendants about, that takes the women of the family one by one, generation after generation. The figure that moves closer in each photograph, until finally it stands among us, so close that our shadows merge, death and the living occupying the same space for one terrible moment before the living become the dead. I've tried to enhance the final photograph enough to see the face of the woman in white, to see who or what was coming for Helen that day. But the face remains indistinct, blurred, as though death itself refuses to be clearly seen. Claire sent me one more message last month. I've put the photographs in a safety deposit box. I can't look at them anymore. But I wanted to thank you for telling me the truth about them, for not dismissing what I saw as imagination or damage to the images. She's still in my dreams. Closer now. I can almost see her face. Sometimes I think it's my great-great-great-grandmother, the one who died in 1887. Sometimes I think it's Helen herself, come back to warn me or claim me or both. But I'm ready now. I know she's coming. I can see her approaching. And unlike Helen, unlike all the others who never knew what was behind them in those photographs, I'm aware. I'm watching. I'm waiting. Maybe that will make a difference. Maybe awareness is protection. Or maybe the woman in white comes regardless, moving closer with each passing day, until finally she stands beside me, and our shadows merge, and I join the long line of Witmore women who've gone before. Either way, I'll face her directly. Not like Helen, who never turned around, who never saw what was approaching through that sunny June afternoon in 1910. I'll look death in the face when she arrives. And maybe, finally, I'll see who she really is. The 5 photographs from 1910 remain preserved in that safety deposit box. Evidence of the day a family gathered for a picnic, and death came to join them, invisible to all except the camera, moving closer with each exposure. Following Helen Witmore through that afternoon, approaching from behind, until finally she stood among them, claiming the woman who would die that night. The photographs don't lie. They show what they show. A figure in white moving closer, frame by frame, exposure by exposure, until death and the living occupy the same space. And somewhere in Portland, Oregon, Claire Witmore watches and waits, dreaming of a woman in white who approaches a little closer each night, moving through time, the way she moved through those photographs, coming closer with each exposure, until finally she arrives.